Thank you for inviting me today.
Yeah, thank you. So we will all love to know about the specific moment you had in your life that ignited your curiosity for like a beyond the skies and to dive deeper for your passion for the space.
Mhm. Yeah, so I have a presentation, so I'm just gonna pull it up and I guess I know you have questions, so I guess like I can answer them like with the slides or something, if that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Okay.
sure. Ma'am.
Um, let me show you the screen. Can you see this?
Yeah,
Okay. Um, cool. Hold on, it's loading. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, that was just my introduction. A journey through STEM. So a little bit about me is my name is Jasmine Singh. You can see that. I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States. But my parents and my whole family is from India, New Delhi specifically. Um, and I've been very passionate about space and space exploration since I was very young. Currently, I have a bachelor's degree in planetary science from Purdue University, and my specific research interests are in planetary atmospheres and astrobiology, like you mentioned. I have been a science communicator, an online science communicator since 2020. I'll talk more about that later. And I'm currently a NASA Solar System ambassador, and also I'm going to be starting my PhD in the fall in space physics at the University of Texas at San Antonio. So you just asked me what drew me to space. So
yeah.
I don't really have like an emotional story. I know people talk about like, oh, I like looked into a telescope when I was little or something like that. But no, I don't really have anything super emotional. Basically, it all started in my sixth grade earth science class when we learned about the solar system. And I thought it was
Hmm.
just really, really fascinating because every planet was just so different than Earth, and ours is the only one that we know of in our solar system that has life on it. Um, and so it just blew my mind. I couldn't comprehend anything. And I have a picture of Saturn there because when I was learning about them for the first time, Saturn was my favorite planet. I think everyone
Because it
really
has a
likes
ring.
Saturn because the rings are visible. Because if you guys
Mhm.
don't know, all four of the outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, all have rings actually, but Saturn is the only one that has visible rings. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that was the one that drew my eye the most. And I even gave a little presentation about it. I think that was one of the assignments that we had. So I chose Saturn for that. But yeah, it was really that simple. It wasn't like an emotional story or anything. I just learned about them in class and became super
Yeah.
obsessed with space.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And
Mhm.
that was very fascinating. So
Thank
my next
you.
question is so we all know that your research are very interesting, and your internship at the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center involved a climate model, like we know,
Mhm.
GIS model E and Rocky 3D, if I'm not wrong. Yeah,
Mhm.
can you elaborate their significance and also how they help your astrobiological goals with it?
Okay. Well, I didn't put that much about my science in here, but I can definitely talk about them a little bit. Um, I'll try not to be too like in
Yeah.
depth because I know it's like kind of complicated. But basically, I was originally just supposed to work on the Model E, which is basically a climate model for Earth's climate. Um, but when they interviewed me for the internship and they learned about my passion for planetary atmospheres, they they asked me if I wanted to work on Rocky 3D as well, because Rocky 3D basically has to do with exoplanets and
Yeah,
exoplanet, like what factors influence exoplanet habitability, which is, you know, right up my alley. So
yeah,
during my internship, I actually worked on both the GIF Model E and the Rocky 3D climate model emulators. And I basically used machine learning to try and like improve them. So the Model E actually had like a lot of progress on it. And I was basically just trying to match the model outputs with what I was
yeah.
doing in the machine learning, make their
Mm-hmm.
accuracy pretty much
Okay.
one to one, to try and improve the model through that. Because the climate model emulator is not, I mean, it's in the name. It's an emulator. It's not an actual climate model, and we use emulators because climate models, you know, they take a lot to run. So it's actually good to
Yeah,
use emulators instead. So we were just using an emulator to try and mimic what the actual climate model would show. So I was working on it for Model E for a little bit, and then like halfway through the internship, I switched to Rocky 3D and focused more on exoplanet habitability. Um, and Rocky 3D, at least the one that I was working on, which was the land planets one, which is basically planets that don't really have, they're mostly land, they don't really have water or anything on the surface. So I was working on that one. And there wasn't a lot of
yeah,
progress on it. So that one I had to do a little bit more work on, but I did make progress and improve the accuracy of that one as well. And the picture of me is just me, because the internship was virtual, unfortunately, because COVID was
yeah.
happening, sadly. So I was at home for it, but that's the picture of me when I was giving my presentation and I'm holding up my NASA
Yeah,
laptop with the
that's really
presentation
cool.
on it. Thank
Yeah.
you. I hope
Yeah,
that explained something.
yeah. That was very insightful. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, I heard that your new recent research with Dr. David Minton on a mass crater chronology. Sounds
Yes.
really fascinating. That so. So, how does it analyze the past impact contribution to our understanding on a potential life on a Mars?
Okay. I have a slide about that as well. I'm just kind of skipping some slides. I guess I'll go back to them later. Um,
Yeah, sure.
where was that slide? It's after this. Oh, it's this one. Okay, yeah. So I did do work on Mars. The Mars work was kind of unrelated to anything I've ever done. It was outside of my comfort zone since I'm more into atmospheres like clouds and stuff on planets. I don't really do a lot of geology,
Yeah.
but after I graduated, I really wanted to do a summer research project, and Dr. Minton happened to have a PhD student that was looking for an undergrad to work with them, and you know, you get paid and everything. So I was like, why not do it? You know, it's good to try something new. Um, so I took the leap and emailed and asked about the project, and they let me come onto the team despite my background not being in geology. They still they still let me do the project. And it was really, I learned a lot. It was really good because, you know, it was something new and I'd never done creator counting before. But they guided me through the process and I ended up, you can see here, I mean, you can't really see the
Yeah.
details, but that's okay. I ended up making a poster and going to my first ever conference, which was in October of 2022, which was the Division of Planetary Sciences Conference, and it was in Canada. It was really nice. And I got to present that work. So it was really good, but the work didn't have to really do with life on Mars. It was more so just talking about like it more so had to do with like ancient Martian geology and our understanding of craters on Mars and how you can determine the age of the surface using craters. So that's kind of what I was doing, was trying to determine because there was like there's different methods of finding the age of the surface, and I was trying to determine like a new method and see if there was any like if it would match up with other
Yeah.
people's ages of the surface, which our method did not match up with the ages of the surface. It was kind of off by like half a million years. So kind of significant. So I was just talking about what we did and how we found our surface age and stuff like that. So it didn't have to do with life. It was totally, a different project than anything else I'd ever done, but I still gained a lot of important skills from it. And I don't regret doing it. I really liked working with Dr. Menton. So it was a good project overall, even though it doesn't have to do with anything that I
Yeah,
want to
that's
go
good.
into. Because Mars, like, I don't really, no offense to anyone here that likes Mars, I don't really like Mars. I find it kind of boring, but I did enjoy the project. So yeah, sorry, I kind
Uh,
of rambled a bit.
no, it's fine. So one of the crucial piece of puzzle is like your transition from being as an astrobiologist to like being a science communicator. So what
Mhm.
exciting trend do you find to engage people with the science?
Okay. I have a slide about science communication as well. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so in 2020, when COVID was happening, I was at home because school kind of kicked us out. So I came back home and was finishing the semester at home. And I was a sophomore in college and I was going to start my junior year in the fall. So I actually originally made my account because I wanted to connect with people in the industry. I didn't actually make it for science communication. I just made it because I wanted to network and find people, and I didn't want to make a LinkedIn account, so I was like, I'm gonna do social media. I don't want to make a LinkedIn. And I knew that people used social media professionally, so I just decided to make Twitter. um and obviously I did not have any idea that it was going to get to the point that it got to today. Um because I just started, finding people in astronomy, planetary science, that kind of thing. Anybody in the space field, I just started following them. And then I would just tweet about anything space related, including news and whatnot. And people just started following me and wanted to see my journey, which was really, really nice. And obviously, it kind of snowballed. And now here we are 4 years later with 84,000 followers or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's
It's unbelievable, and I, am very, very grateful for the platform that I have. And I'm trying to use it responsibly. I always credit, I show where I get my pictures and stuff from. I try not to spread any misinformation. If I get something wrong, I will correct, myself and like delete the tweet or put a tweet under it saying, "Oh, I got this wrong. I'm sorry. Here's the correct thing." I always try to be very careful, but I'm still human. We make mistakes. Um,
yeah.
but obviously now I've kind of shifted to science communication. Well, I shifted pretty early on to science communication because I realized that my platform was growing a lot and I could use it for something good and try to inspire people. So whether they're in the space field or not, right? Any kind of person. So I just started tweeting news and facts and just anything to do with space. And I tried to, you talk about trends in the question, so I try to keep up with
Yeah.
all the NASA, like major NASA accounts. I don't really tweet about like SpaceX or anything. I have a little bit about like a couple launches here and there, but um, I'm mostly like NASA focused. I'm sure people know that, but I have a few
Yeah,
tweets about SpaceX, and other agencies here and there, like Japan or China or India, stuff like that, but mostly focus on NASA.
yeah,
But I try to keep up with them and just tweet anything, you know, new pictures, new news, anything about launches, um, any like anniversaries of like, oh, 50 years ago this happened or whatever. And then recently, I'm sure you guys know, we've been having a lot of events, like the aurora
yeah,
happened, the eclipse happened, stuff like that. So a lot of things happening in the sky. So I tweet about those as well so that people know what to look out for. And I love seeing people get excited about that kind of thing. So it's really just a mixture of a lot of things. But I also tweet about myself because I think it's important that people see me as a person behind the account and they don't just see a bunch of pictures and stuff all the time. So obviously recently I tweeted about getting into grad school and like where I'm going and stuff, and that was a whole big deal. I'll talk about it in the presentation later, but
yeah,
I've been unsuccessful with that, and so it was really nice to finally be able to tell people like this happened, and and I just love having people keep up with me, and it's really nice to see people be so supportive and kind. And it's just mind-blowing that I can even inspire people to begin with. I've gotten so many nice messages from people all around, um, saying that I inspire them and stuff. And that's the whole point of what I do at the end of the day, is just to inspire people, whether you're in the space industry or not, whatever field you're in. I just want to inspire people to pursue their dreams, like I did, and never give up. So, yeah, that's the whole point of what I do. I
yeah.
hope
We all
that
love your
answers the
content.
question.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, definitely. And especially, I love the memes you send a couple of times. Like,
Yes,
yeah,
I try to be funny too.
yeah. So I have one more interesting question. Like, just suppose we have like imagine have we are having a breakthrough that discovered the proof of life on other planets. So, how do you think that event would impact humanity and the future space exploration?
I've thought about this a lot because it's like, you know, would humanity freak out, or would we be, relieved or something? I feel like it would be a mixture of both. Because I've asked people on Twitter like a few times. I've tweeted like, do you guys think we're alone? And like most people say no, which is good. I hope people think we're not alone because there's no way. I mean, I could, that's a
Mhm.
whole separate conversation, but there's just no possible way that we're alone just by the sheer size of the universe alone. Um, so I think that hopefully, in my lifetime, in our lifetime, we discover signs of life somewhere, even if it's just little bacteria, right? That's still
Yeah.
something, that's still life. Because people don't realize, like, we also, all life on Earth started off as little bitty stuff before it evolved into what we are now. It takes a long time. So even if we found like cells on a different planet, that's still really awesome. And it answers our question, right? So I think honestly, yeah, I think it would be a mixture of people freaking out because humans freak out, but also people would
Yeah.
be really relieved that we finally answered this question that we've been wondering for
Yeah.
so many, hundreds of years. Because you can go back like so many hundreds of years and people have still been asking, what's out there, right? When we didn't
Mm.
even know anything about space, right? um so I think it would be really, really impactful, which is why I'm so excited for, you know future James Webb discoveries, and Also, upcoming missions like Dragonfly to Titan, Europa Clipper, which I have some stuff about Europa Clipper in my presentation, um, and other upcoming missions that are related to astrobiology, um, just because I think that those are going to really open us up to a lot of new science because we haven't really had, if you think about it, missions that are centered around astrobiology. So like Clipper and all those missions are like the beginning, right? And so it's really, really exciting. I think people should be really looking forward to the launch of these
Yeah.
missions because it's gonna open us up to a lot of new
Sure.
exciting science related to astrobiology and stuff. So I do hope that in my lifetime we find signs of life somewhere. If not, I hope we get really, really close.
Yeah.
And I think with
Uh,
the way
so
technology is going, we will get really close. If not, find something.
yeah. So just a follow-up question. So,
Hmm.
as you said before, the defining life is like a much more complex. It can be a single bacteria or anything living being
Hmm.
can be. So, how do you see the definition of a life or a living organism are like changing as we explore more and more planets and more potential biosignatures on the exoplanet?
Yeah, that's a good question because the definition of life, people have argued about what life, what's considered life. Um, and I think for me, it's it can be very small and it can be very big. Um, but it has to require water and, energy and certain things to keep it alive and whatnot and go through respiratory processes and those kinds of things to sustain itself. So I think there's like certain criteria that classify things as life, but it doesn't necessarily have to be intelligent life or anything. I know people talk about aliens and they think about,
Yeah,
what
the
you see in
sci-fi stuff.
Hollywood. Yeah, they think about what you see in the movies and stuff. And I'm not saying that there's not an intelligent species out there. There probably is, but chances are they're very, very rare and also probably really, really far away. So unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to communicate with them just because our technology it can't go that far. Um,
Yeah,
so
sure.
unless they're like super, super advanced and can find a way to reach us, there's just no way we can um, reach them. But I don't think life has to be intelligent to be considered life, if that makes any sense. And I don't think it has to be, I think it can be microbial, like cells and everything, bacteria, it's all life. It's just not visible to us.
Yeah. So now are some like a transition question, and um,
Mhm.
so I think personally these are the very important question because what are some specific reason that is still resisting, especially if you take an example, young girls in India to persist in. If I take a look at my class, it's like a 80 to 20% of a ratio of boys and girls. So what are some factors that are kept resisting young girls to become in a STEAM?
So you're asking like why there's like more
Yeah,
guys than girls?
yeah,
I mean, there's probably a number of factors. I think it's just, you know, historically, more guys have been involved in it. Um, and we also need to market and get girls more involved in STEM, which I think places are doing a pretty good job. Like a lot of schools have like girls in STEM clubs that they're starting up, which is really nice just to get girls involved. Like I know my elementary school that I was at a long time ago. Recently I heard that they have a like girls who code club, which is really nice. That teaches little girls how to code, simple coding, obviously, because they're very young, but stuff like that. So I think getting girls involved at a young age is really good, and that can like help to inspire them. Um, that's also part of what I do. What I do, obviously in the broad sense, I want to inspire everyone, but if I'm looking for a target audience, it is girls, especially younger women of color like me, because I think that we are just very outnumbered, and that's okay. Obviously, there are still amazing women that are paving the way and making it possible for future generations to do this without any barriers. But I still think we have a long way to go. And I hope to be one of those people that kind of helps to pave the way and make it
Yeah.
possible for younger girls to do this kind of thing, because back then when I was younger, I didn't really have role models that looked like me, which is okay, it's fine. I had Carl Sagan, but
Yeah.
it's nice now to see, like, after joining Twitter and like having a big community and stuff, it's nice to see other women that are like me that are doing the same thing, that are around my age or older, and stuff like that. So I'm sure there's a lot of reasons why girls don't do it. It's just overall interest. Their interests probably go elsewhere. And also just lack of, pushing them and
Okay.
encouraging them to do this kind of thing. But I think now it's getting better, and I hope that it continues in an upward trend and we start to see more girls doing it. I do think historically in the sciences, I think in biology, there's actually a lot of girls that do biology, just
Yeah.
regular
Also.
biology and like nursing and medicine and stuff like that. So I think it does also depend on the field, because I know certain STEM fields have more women than men, and some have more men than women. So it depends overall, but I hope to see positive changes in the coming years.
Yeah. Thank you. So that's all the question I have made, and so we can get to the presentation. If you really like.
Okay. I'll just skip over the slides that I already did, I guess, which is
Yeah.
the few
Sure.
that you asked me about, but I can start from, so I already gave about myself and I did that. So yeah. Okay. So I'll just continue where I left off. So
Yeah.
after after I learned about space and I got really, really interested, I wanted to learn more about it, obviously, but I didn't have any classes, no astronomy classes in my schools. Very, very sad, I know. So I had to kind of learn on my own. So I have a few things, a few pictures that kind of represent what I kind of went to. So obviously, I bought Cosmos, the book. I have that one, that exact one that you see the picture of.
Yeah.
And I read that Carl Sagan is my hero. I hope to be like him. People already say I am like him, which is too generous, too nice.
Yeah.
Um, but I read Cosmos, and that's one of the things that really, really solidified, okay, this is what I want to do. And then I watched movies like Apollo 13 is one of my favorite movies. Actually, it is my favorite movie. I know I talk about Interstellar all the time, but it's actually Apollo 13 is my favorite. And it's mostly because of nostalgia. I watched it a lot when I was younger. Um, so I have really good memories with that movie. And if you haven't
Mm.
seen it, please watch it. It's really good.
Yeah.
And it's
I watched
historically
it. It is.
accurate. It's very
Yeah.
good.
It's pretty.
Um, yeah, so that's my favorite movie actually. Interstellar second though. Very close
Okay.
second. And then I also went on YouTube and watched a lot of videos and just learned. And obviously these are not the only things I looked at, but they're just a few examples. But I learned a lot about space in the meantime because I was just really, really fascinated and I could not wait until college. You know what I mean? I just had to learn
Yeah.
more. And of course, when you're young, you're really curious and you have a lot of questions. So I couldn't stop looking up and asking questions. So why do I have a picture of the moon? Because that was what I was looking at. I was always looking at the moon and my mind was just racing with questions. Obviously, when I was younger, I didn't really know anything. So I thought there was people up. Like I imagined like beings up there looking back at me. So that's why I have the picture of the alien. Because I didn't know any better. But I definitely think that's kind of where my love for like astrobio and stuff came from. Was because I was always just thinking about what's out there, who's out there, you know. Um, but at the time I did not know it was astrobiology. I just called
Yeah.
everything astronomy. So obviously once I got older and I learned more about specific fields and whatnot, that's how I decided kind of what to go into. But basically I was always asking questions. Obviously I'm still asking questions. That's what makes a good scientist is that you're always asking
Yeah.
questions no matter what age you're at. But that's kind of what sparked um,
Yeah.
more of an interest was that I was also learning about space on my own, but then, you know, every chance I could get, I would look up and then wonder even more um, what's out there. All right.
Talking, I just have a question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking when we are talking about astrobiology, the
Hmm.
main concern it cannot like when it comes to biology, people usually think like we have to go to the medical school, be a doctor, and the
Yeah,
same stuff over and
it's
over.
not that kind of, yeah, obviously there's like regular biology which has to do with medicine and animals on Earth and that, you know, very broad. So many things you can do. But this is astrobiology specifically has to do with life in the universe, the origin, evolution, and distribution of life in the universe. That is the difference.
Yeah.
Hence why it has
So
astro in the
yeah,
name.
yeah. So how can we provide them more exposure to the other subject related to the biology, like astrobiology?
Hmm?
So
Sorry, can
how
you
can
repeat
we
that?
Yeah. So how can we like provide them more exposure to the other related subject like astrobiology and rather than just being a formal education of a doctor and stuff like that?
Well, I think I mean, astrobiology is kind of a newer field. It didn't really get started until like the 90s or so. Um, so I just think over time there will be more interest in it because a lot of people just don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
Which is why I just say like planetary science and people don't even know what planetary science is. So then I just say astronomy, but even though it's not the same thing, but you know, um, but I just think we need more exposure and we need more time to pass because astrobiology, like I said, it's not that old of a field because
Yeah.
we just didn't have we just didn't have the technology back then to look for
Yep.
these kinds of things and ask these kinds of questions. So with James Webb and like I said, all these upcoming missions, there will be more interest and more people wanting to go into it and more exposure, like you said. So just give it time.
Yeah. Sure.
Um, okay, yeah. So we're gonna fast forward to college because there wasn't really much else going on. I went through school like normal. I didn't really have anything crazy. I still had my interest in space and everything. So college is where things get really interesting. So this is like a summary of what I did in college. So I went to Purdue. I double majored in planetary and atmospheric science. And I added atmospheric science as a double major because planetary science is a very broad field. You can do anything you want in it. So I kind of wanted to specify my interests. And I really enjoyed atmospheres of planets and weather and that kind of thing. So I added that second major to kind of combine the two, research wise and stuff. So I did participate in undergrad research. We talked about that. But I was also involved in numerous leadership positions like Women in Science. And I was also College of Science ambassador and EAPS ambassador. And also, I was a part of the Purdue University Meteorological Association or PUMA. So I did a lot in college, on top of my internship and having a social life and everything.
Mm.
Um, we already talked about this. So yeah, in 2020, I made a very big decision, and it paid off. So yeah, little did I know that making that account was going to grow at a very, very rapid rate. And it inspired a lot of people from different backgrounds, and drew them to me. And I talked about how I have gotten a lot of very nice messages, and I realized that I could inspire the next generation of scientists and explorers, specifically focused on young women of color, but obviously anyone. But that's like my main target audience. But I also really like um, talking with kids as well. I think it's very nice to talk to them and get questions. But
Yeah.
yeah, overall, my main goal is to just inspire people, just anyone. Um, so yeah, since my platform was growing a lot, I have gotten many opportunities, including other speaking opportunities like this one. I've gotten interviewed, I've been on podcasts, um, I've given presentations, um, I've done giveaways, like I've done a lot. And one that really stands out to me is I got to go to a NASA social. Well, I had to apply, but I got accepted. And basically, NASA social is where they invite people with big social media platforms to go to Kennedy Space Center, and you go for a launch. So every launch they do a NASA social. So there's a bunch of them. And I went for the Crew 4 launch in 2022. And it was really fun. I met up with, a bunch of people. So a lot that I knew from Twitter. So it was nice to meet them in person. But yeah, I got to go to Kennedy, and here's a few pictures. I took a picture in front of the SLS. This was before um Artemis 1, so I'm really excited that I got to take a picture in front of it because that rocket is not there anymore. Um and I was inside the VAB. That's the picture in the middle.
Yeah.
The VAB is the vehicle assembly building where they have
Mm,
all the rockets. There was not a rocket there, obviously, because the rocket was outside. And the picture on the left is me in the room where they do press conferences, where they have all the astronauts sit at that
mm,
table and they ask them questions. So it was nice to get to sit at that desk and take a picture. But it was really, really exciting, and I got to share that journey. With my followers. Sadly, I did not get to witness the launch because they delayed it. They do delay them a lot of the time, which is okay. But I did get to watch a SpaceX launch. Um, so that was really exciting. And I met a bunch of people, and it was awesome. That was also my first rocket launch ever. So at least I got to watch something, even if it wasn't the launch that I went there for. But
yeah.
overall, it was really exciting, and I will never forget that experience. And I hope to go to more socials in the future. I already talked about interning.
Yeah.
That is also something that I got because of Twitter. Because I did apply to a few NASA internships and I didn't get the offers. And then my mentor eventually reached out to me on Twitter and was like, "Hey, have you gotten an internship yet?" And I said no. And then he offered me the position, and I was really, really grateful and will never forget his help and guidance. And I
Yeah.
still talk to him today after 3 years. He's actually written me a lot of letters of recommendation for every time I applied to grad school. So I'm very grateful for my mentor and all his help. We talked about my projects. Well, we talked about the Mars one. I also, senior year, I worked on an exoplanet project with a grad student in our department. And it was basically involving like how light scatters in the atmospheres of exoplanets. That's the simplified version. I'm not going to go into a lot of details because it's complicated, but
Yeah. Complete.
on the bottom you can see my poster. That was the first time I ever made a poster and got to present it, so I was really grateful for that. But that was another project that I worked on as a senior. I did do work as a junior, but that project didn't really go anywhere, so I don't really talk about it. But I did also do work as a junior in college. Um, okay, fast forward to graduation. So I graduated in the spring of 2022. There's a picture of me at graduation. It was really hot and I was wearing black, so sweating a lot. So it's not the best picture, but it's okay. Um, so I originally planned on taking a gap year because I was very burnt out from school and I just wanted a little bit of a break. Um, I did actually apply to only two schools my senior year. But I did get rejected and waitlisted, which is okay because I was already planning on taking time off, so it was fine. And I didn't really take that application process too seriously, so it didn't really bother me. I was surprised that I got waitlisted though, out of two schools. Like that was crazy. Um, but in that meantime, in the time off, I wanted to have a research position or do some kind of planetarium job or something related to, space in the meantime. We will now get into what happened. Um, Sadly, things don't always work out. With the good comes the bad, and that's okay. Talking about the bad, I can talk about it now since you all know things have worked out, but we do have to talk about the bad things. I wasn't originally able to talk about this stuff, this period of my life, because it was really hard to talk about when I was going through it. But now that I've passed it, it's okay to talk about. And I think a lot of people need to hear it. So basically, after I finished my Mars research project in October, things took a turn. At the time, my personal life was very messy. I'm not going to get into details, obviously, but my personal life was messy from when I graduated, but it carried over, obviously. It was still messy. On top of that, I couldn't find any research positions for people with bachelors, which is hard anyways. In sciences, you need a master's or higher to find jobs like that, but I was still hoping to find something and I couldn't find anything. And jobs in general were just hard to come by at the time. And I applied to grad school again for the second time. And, I took the process more seriously this time and applied to more schools and everything and got rejected from all of them. So I had to take another year off. And basically at that time, I just kind of felt like a failure, felt like I was behind because everybody that I knew from school was kind of moving on in their lives. They either had jobs or they were in grad school or something, right? Something. And I just felt like I was stuck. Like why did I do all of this work if it's not paying off? So basically I had no idea what the future had in store for me. And it scared me a lot. And I fell into a deep depression from 2022 all the way to the end of 2023. So long time. Um, but if you don't succeed, apply again. So applying to grad school is very tough. And I didn't want to repeat the process because it's a lot of work, but I had to do it, and I did it twice. So what did I change? Because obviously I was not going to do the same thing I did the other times because that didn't work. So I went through something called the GEMS program where they assign you to a mentor and the mentor kind of guides you through the process. But the good thing is that the mentor that they assign you to has similar interests. So my mentor, both the years that I did it, had interest in astrobiology and stuff like that. Um, and this year, my mentor actually worked on Europa Clipper and stuff like that. So that was like really close to what I
That's
wanted to
cool.
do. Yeah. I also started the process really, really early, which was like July and August. Whereas in 2022, I waited, and that was not a good idea. You should never wait to apply to grad school, especially because all of the applications are due in like December and January, like all of them. So you're going to be struggling a lot if you don't start early, especially because you have to reach out to professors and they get very busy. So if you don't reach out early, they might not even reply to you. I also had multiple people look over my essays and I edited them a lot. And I applied to way more schools. So last year or 2022, I applied to seven schools. Um, Whereas last year I applied to double, like
Um,
14. I even had more schools on the list. I had international schools, which I was going to apply to if the US schools did not work out. I was very serious about getting into school this time. Um, and so I had international schools, whereas 2022, I didn't have international schools on the list, but international schools are less competitive. So I was like, well, if US schools don't work out, then I'll just go somewhere else. Thankfully, I didn't have to do that, but I was prepared. So, 2024, the year my life changed for the better. Um, I really was praying and hoping that 2024 would be my year. That's what I call it, because I just didn't know how much more failure I could take, and I didn't want to feel sad anymore. So I just kept praying and praying something would happen. And lo and behold, in January, the beginning of January, things were already looking up because that was when I found out I became a solar system ambassador. And I was really, really happy because being a solar system ambassador means that I get to talk to people in person about space, and tell them what NASA's doing on behalf of NASA. So it's like an official position and everything. So I was really, really happy. And then on my birthday in February, that's when I found out I got into grad school. And I was very, very relieved. Needless to say, I cried a lot. Happy tears. Um, and you can see on the right side, I have the picture for my official program, the UTSA SWERI Space Physics grad program. Um, and I am working on my dream mission, Europa Clipper. I can't really give a lot of details about my work, but just know that it involves Europa's habitability, and
Yeah.
Europa Clipper, stuff like that. So you get the idea. I just can't go into detail about it. Um, and also, I applied for a fellowship, a very competitive fellowship, the NSF-GRFP, and I got an honorable mention, which means I didn't get the fellowship, but I was very close, and it's very hard to even get an honorable mention. So I was really happy about that because I was applying as someone who's not even a grad student. And I was just shocked that I even got an honorable mention. So that means if I reapply next year, I'll most likely get it. So yeah, it's just a lot of really happy things have happened. And that's only, the first part of the year. So we still have the rest of the year to go.
Very many.
Um, but people always ask me my advice. Um, and I know it's cliche, but I always tell people never give up. And I'm serious when I say that. I have the quote here from Jack Ma: never give up. Today is hard. Tomorrow will be worse, but the day after tomorrow will be sunshine. And speaking as someone who has gone through hell and back, it will get better. I know that when it's bad, you don't believe that it's going to get better, which that's how I felt when I was really going through it. I didn't think it was going to get better. I really didn't. And it did. It got better than I could ever have imagined. And now next month I'm going to be moving to start school, um at the end of next month. So just don't stop chasing your dreams. It's going to be hard, but I promise you it's worth it for, the outcome. No matter how many people tell you you can't do it or how difficult it may seem, I promise it's worth chasing them. If you think it's worth it, then it's worth it. Don't listen to what anyone else says.
That was
That's
very,
the
very
end.
inspiring. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
that's the end. I
uh,
also have this. This is just my socials if you don't have me on Instagram or Twitter. And then the link on the bottom has it's a page that has all of my stuff on it. So that's a good page to go on if you want to see like everything. But I mainly use Instagram and Twitter, so those are right there. But that's the end. I hope I didn't talk for too long.
It's got
But thank you for
really
having
impressive.
me.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you for
ma'am, for like
being here.
this was
Of
Um,
course.
it's like stop the presentation.
Oh, yeah. Oh, do you want me to get the slides off or?
Stop it. Yeah,
no,
yeah,
no, it's
yeah.
fine.
Okay. Okay. I
Like
was just
I just
keeping
want
this
your
up so
additional request.
I was keeping it up so people can see
All
if
right,
they
you can.
wanted to. Yeah, if
No, no,
people wanted to follow me. That's why I'm keeping
no.
it up.
Yeah. Right. So, like, thank you for being here. Right.
Yeah.
Um, you had a great story.
Thank you. I hope
So if
I
anyone has
hope it
any
was
questions,
inspiring.
you guys
Oh
can
yeah. Yeah,
ask.
if anyone has any. Um, but I hope it was inspiring. Um, and the whole point of it is that you guys are not alone. Nobody's ever alone in feeling down. And I'm glad that I can finally talk about how I was feeling because, for the longest time I was not able to talk about it with anyone. But now that I've come out on the other side, I can tell you it will get better.
Yeah.